In some ways, for fans of action RPGs, Biomutant will be a comfortingly familiar experience. It's got open world exploration, character levelling and an involving storyline. So far, so normal. But then things start to get weird. For a start, you'll have noticed that the cast of characters are all highly evolved kung fu rodents. You might also have spotted that the enemies you face are a bizarre mix of mutated creatures. And you'll quickly discover that the plot tells a cautionary environmental tale where the moral of the story is that if we don't take care of our planet, we'll have to deal with rats the size of 8-year-old kids. Look, I'm recycling as fast as I can, okay? This is definitely a game that does things a little differently from your average open world action RPG. To pick an entirely random example, in how many other games do you claim fast travel points by taking a leak on them?
Let's see.
Gotta say, it's a lot quicker than climbing a sodding radio tower. So for your consideration, here are 7 ways that Biomutant is the weirdest game you'll play this year. In this video brought to you by outsidexbox and sponsor Biomutant.
Encode your DNA.
Before you've even begun, Biomutant sets its stall out early with one of the most bizarre character creation systems in gaming history. In keeping with the words written in big letters on the front of the game box, it's less character creation and more character mutation. Starting with a generic hyper-evolved furry mammal, you first select your breed from 6 choices. This is the usual sort of thing. Will you be an intelligent weakling or an acrobatic thicko?
Define your genetic structure.
It's after this point though that things get strange. You now have the chance to actively mutate your player character. Fiddling with the multi-directional slider on the left-hand side of the screen remixes your character's DNA in order to reflect the stats you select, and you can see the results in real time. Lean towards strength, and you'll have a rat built like the brick outhouse in which you'd ordinarily find a rat. Gravitate towards intellect instead, and your little rodent will end up with a lollipop physique. Tiny body, massive head. That's what happens when you skip leg day, and arm day, and just about everything else day. Once you've completed the very rigorous scientific process of creating a horrific mutant freak, it's then time to apply the finishing touches, picking a preferred combat class, and most importantly, as luridly coloured fur as you can manage.
Choose your detail color.
I shall name you Disco Rodent.
That's right. Light is only for those having difficulty seeing what's in front of them. Sticking to the me first path is the only way we'll be going places.
Based on the shredded cardboard boxes in our attic, we'd never really considered that rodents might have moral considerations beyond just, is this thing edible or not? But, like the human beings they've replaced, Biomutant's civilization of hyper-intelligent rats clearly have a sense of right and wrong, represented by light and dark aura. Do good honourable things and your aura will tend to creep towards light. Be rude to people in the service industry, for example, and it'll start to creep towards the dark.
You are free to choose their fate, but not free from the consequences of your choice.
Where Biomutant gets weird is that your moral choices are represented by actual characters, namely these 2 little sprite things who spring up from time to time when you're about to make an important decision, usually to have a massive argument between themselves.
Oh, do you have to insult me over this?
I don't have to, but I want to.
Wow, for a manifestation of goodness and light, she goes in hard. Aligning yourself with particular characters or tribes out in the open world affects your aura based on their own goals. So, for example, agreeing to hunt creatures in the hostile dead zone will subtly shift your aura towards the darker side.
Says as long as there are monsters out there, it's still haunting time.
See? On my side. Go, dark, go!
By the end of the game, you'll almost certainly have a different moral alignment from the one you began with, perhaps based on which of those 2 morality fairies is currently dishing out the best insults.
What's there to like about light? It hurts to look at.
Not as much as it hurts to look at you.
You do, however, set yourself on your preferred course right at the start of the game, right after character creation, picking between light and dark side by simply walking down one or other of these two pathways.
We're already at a crossroads. Choosing a path in life is that fork in the road where you make a choice or simply stop living.
If only it were that straightforward in Star Wars. Luke Skywalker could have saved a whole lot of trouble.
Know that the tree of life is dying. Its days are numbered. Without help, it can't endure the environmental change and assault from the world eaters.
When there's someone talking all over a game, it's usually an irritating YouTuber babbling over the important cutscenes, begging you to like and subscribe, and desperately attempting to be funny. I mean, we're guilty as charged, obviously, but if you could like and subscribe... Biomutant heads all this off by bringing its own narrator along, who commentates throughout the game.
It's unusual that natural tunnels like this still exist. Most of them got flooded.
The difference is, rather than a minor internet influencer, Biomutants managed to get a gloriously plummy British actor ripped straight from a radio drama.
Finally, Goop is almost done with the Goo Glide, a machine able to ride the waves of the surf all the way out to the Porky Puff at the end of the route to the southeast.
So classy! The narrator doesn't just make occasional appearances either. He fills all sorts of roles, including offering random encouragement during combat,
Bullets everywhere.
detailing mission objectives and locations,
Mercadorpus Outpost, a Jagni tribe stronghold.
and filling in details of exactly how the world ended up being poisoned so badly that we left it to the hamsters.
There are few records of the chain of events that led to the big apocalypse eons ago, but it's clear the world wasn't prepared for how recklessly the Toxanol Corporation would make its mark on the world.
Now, I'm no branding expert, but maybe Toxanol should have at least called themselves something different. Nicenol, perhaps? Most importantly, because the game is entirely populated by a bunch of rodents who speak rodent, without the help of the narrator, you can't actually understand anything the other characters say. Well, apart from Elvis impersonating rat Best Before, who I'm pretty confident is saying, "We can't go on together with suspicious minds." More or less.
Yes, you can do anything. The sky's the limit.
The inclusion of the narrator gives Biomutant a strange, pleasing momentum to it as your story is told to you on the fly, and there are hundreds and hundreds of lines of dialogue. Most of all though, this is clearly a classically trained actor who is used to doing Shakespeare, but who is really relishing the opportunity to be paid to say the word poo.
Spot its tracks and report back. Also, bring back any poo you find.
Money well spent, if you ask me.
Look, an emergency box from the old days, when you needed to pack a punch to survive.
Lush and vibrant as it is, the world of Biomutant is a dangerous place, particularly given that at the start of the game, you land right in the middle of a tribe war. In terms of your offensive options, it's worth mentioning first and foremost that you could always rely on your bare paws. Rat paws. Whatever. It turns out that at some point during this apocalypse, your rodent hero must have binge-watched a load of old discarded martial arts movies. The only question is, do they make black belts small enough to fit? Stick to the technique that's known in the game as Wung Fu though, and you will miss a wide variety of bonkers weaponry that's super satisfying to use. Biomutant is all about switching between firearms and melee armaments, with you peppering your enemies with bullets from afar and then hacking away with a blade or a club if they have the temerity to close the distance.
You're fading.
Honestly, the nerve!
Wow, bet that nut makes a tight fist.
Some of the weapons you get hold of at key moments will do double duty as both a weapon and a vital tool, like this rocket-powered fist the size of your head that can be charged up and is just as good at caving in walls as it is at caving in skulls. Good in a pinch and a punch. If even a rocket-propelled gauntlet is a touch too de rigueur for you, there's also an extensive weapon customization and crafting system, so you can tailor your gear to your preferred playstyle. Individual segments of the weapon can be hot-swapped in and out, affecting the amount and type of damage it deals and its overall rarity.
A tool for the accomplished cutter.
Which is how you can end up wielding a primary weapon that looks like a hoover attached to a... what is that, a cricket bat? A snowshoe? Something in between? Frankly, who cares when it's that effective?
The morks produce biomatter in their multi-organ that they shed under distress. Blobs that affect the cellular coding strands of any living being when absorbed, including you.
If you thought you'd gotten all your strange mutations out of the way during character creation, think again. Your rodent player character is going to go through more evolutions than the lineup of the Sugar Babes. A little late 90s UK girl band joke there for you. At various points in the game, you'll discover bioblobs, which are gobbets of green goo that can be consumed in order to unlock brand new abilities. Usually they can be found either inside containers dotted around the environment or from colourful insect-like creatures called morks. What, do you suck it out of their abdomens? Actually, don't answer that question. I don't want to know. Although unregulated changes to the fabric of your DNA sounds like a recipe for a really bad time, in Biomutant you'll be merrily chugging a gallon of mutagenic gloop that you found on the floor and hoping for the best. Hey, it worked for those Ninja Turtles, right?
Ooh-wee, that's biohazard.
And it works for you too, with bioblobs available to be spent on new biogenetic abilities which, like pretty much everything in Biomutant, are extremely odd.
Wonder what oddness you could get up to now.
There's nothing so conventional as super strength or telekinesis here. Instead, you'll be doing things like launching enemies in the air by growing springy mushrooms beneath their feet. Our personal favourite though is the one called Vile Bile, that allows you to puke bright green vomit all over the floor during combat and damage your enemies. To be fair, I say this is weird, but I too can unlock the power to throw up, it turns out. I just need to accidentally eat a sandwich several days past its expiration date. Easy.
That's a gnote. Easy prey for Loopa-Loopin. For everyone else, they're a perfect mount and easily tamed if they are kept fed.
It turns out the world of Biomutant is huge, particularly if you only have teeny little mouse legs to get around on. That's why you'll want to get hold of a mount sooner rather than later, and as you might have guessed, it'll be nothing as boring and normal as a horse in this game. While it's undeniably a hostile environment, not every creature out there is looking to turn you into a serving of ratatouille with extra rats. There are various cuddly looking animals wandering around the countryside that can be befriended, but that can only be tamed using delicious snacks. You and me both, as your gnote. Once you've tamed a mount though, it can be summoned to your location at your convenience, like a sort of furry Uber, and mounts are the quickest way to explore the open world. At least until one of these rats works out how to invent a motocross bike. Of course, occasionally you'll want to venture into areas that are too toxic and uninhabitable for adorable mutant goats, and you'll need something a little more robust.
They're short of breath and death to this zone. Better take care. He who half breathes, half lives.
That's where the Mekton comes in, which is the only way to get around the ominously named and oxygen-free dead zone without your lungs imploding.
He can't leave the underyard as he has no protection against the vacuum in the dead zone. So you need to salvage scrap to upcycle the Mekton.
Looking like Ripley's iconic yellow power loader, the bipedal Mekton contains its own oxygen supply, allowing you to stomp around in the dead zone to your heart's content. What's more, it's also capable of hoovering up thick, gloopy puddles of otherwise impassable crude oil. Give Greta Thunberg one of these, and the climate crisis would be over within a week. For the fashion-conscious Dead Zone Rambler, you can also customise your Mekton, using crates of parts you find out in the wasteland, carefully replacing every piece of the mech until it perfectly fits your personality. Which in our case means whacking this giant duck head on it and calling it a day.
Better than ever.
My work here is done.
That doesn't sound good. Out-of-date's forebodings are justified. The jumbo puff needs to be taken care of.
You'll spend your fair share of time in Biomutant getting into scraps with the weird and wonderful boss creatures roaming in the new world, particularly if you find yourself locked in the inter-tribe war that's currently going on. Well, that is unless you can successfully convince them not to fight you at all, purely because you're such a stone-cold badass.
He's not sure if you're likable enough to just give up the fort without a fight. He realizes a peaceful end would be best. He'll entrust the fort to you.
Why is that not an option in every game? It would save me, a stone-cold badass, so much time. Sooner or later though, you'll want to take on one of the 4 deeply strange world eaters, huge monsters that are gnawing away at the roots of the Tree of Life, which is currently sustaining the lush new world that has risen from the toxic, polluted mess humanity left it in.
He asks you to not even think about taking on the jumbo puff on foot. You'll need the Mekton to do the job. Take his word for it.
We've got a bit of bad news for you though. Even the very first world eater you encounter, the deceptively adorable sounding Jumbo Puff, looks like a giant chestburster from Alien exploding out of Cookie Monster. Well, that's Sesame Street ruined forever.
A couple of more hits and it's a fried circuit board.
These 4 world eater confrontations will almost certainly be the most spectacular and daunting you face in Biomutant. They are huge multi-stage battles that require you to constantly switch up your tactics to account for unexpected new obstacles. Like, oh, I don't know, being swallowed whole and ending up swimming around inside the thing's digestive tract?
That's too close to the end station.
Not the end station, anything but the end station!
Who would have guessed it would go down with a throw-up? Can it really get any better than that?
Thank you so much for supporting us by watching this video brought to you by OutsideXbox and sponsor Biomutant. If you're intrigued by the game and would like to see a lot more of it, we have a playlist over here which is full of videos. We're going to be adding to it over the course of the next month, so please do check that out. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.